Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're taking a quick look here, of course, at the crypto market update for this weekend. We got a Power 3 manipulative wave trade setup here for Bitcoin. Decent chance we continue higher, along with a descending trendline break here for XRP. SUI, of course, having a nice cup and handle breakout as well, and Solana breaking off of its key level support. So a lot of these things are very important to recognize, especially Ethereum's descending retest here for that trend line too. So stick around, important stuff here. We're going to start with our fear and greed index with our market overview, and just quickly recognize that this number is slowly coming down, and the price of Bitcoin keeps going sideways. If history repeats itself, which it's done before in the past, when that happens, there's a good chance we're going to be able to see the price action continue higher for Bitcoin, mainly because of that simple fact that we're starting to see that cooling off period, and people are going to start FOMOing in because the sentiment starts to change over time, right? Because for a while there, people were thinking 120,000? No way, I'm never going to pay that for Bitcoin. Now people are starting to think, wait a minute, it hasn't gone down yet, I better get in. That's kind of what's going on in the back end there. And we take a look here at derivatives. We can see open interest is kind of drawing dead or flat there. It's mainly because there was a significant selling pressure from yesterday. And if we do take a look at altcoin season index, they're still hanging in there very strong. So if you saw my video yesterday and you watched all the way through, congrats, you'll realize that, hey, altcoins are not going anywhere anytime soon, and that this historical value based on the last week, yesterday and today, it all is kind of hanging out in the same place, even though Bitcoin pulled back to hit that 115,000, somewhere in that range, and definitely held strong. So altcoins looking good. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the back end data here first and kind of see where we're at. Starting with Bitcoin dominance, just kind of give you some perspective. We've had some interesting behavior here, where we shot up yesterday and then now it's pulling back down. Generally speaking, further down we go, the better. That's really what it boils down to. But the key takeaway is we want Bitcoin price to go sideways while this goes down, and preferably Bitcoin price to go up while it goes down. It's kind of an anomaly. It happens sometimes, but for the most part, we're seeing that as a necessity here. But for right now, this is a good sign here. We want to look at Bitcoin volume here, or sorry, this is volatility rather. Start to taper off, and typically when it tapers off, the price action does start to come with it. So we'll pay attention to that as well. And then another thing to recognize too, the CME gap here for Bitcoin, because we always need to understand how Bitcoin works. So make sure you understand the foundations of Bitcoin if you're trading altcoins. And at this point, that CME gap, even though it appeared to be filled on traditional charts, because we came down as low as 115,000, we do see that this range of 114.4 wasn't fully hit there. So we basically just bounced off the upper range of that level. So good news is that still remains, but bad news is it still remains. And if that makes any sense to you, it's okay if it doesn't. The truth is we want that level to be hit so we can kind of just recover from there, because I was ultimately looking for a long 116,000 for Bitcoin, but I held off because the CME gap wasn't fully filled. One of my community members mentioned that I overlooked this yesterday, so thank you again for that. And the key takeaway here is that, CME gaps, while they're never always filled, they're typically usually are. So it's one of those unique things where we got to be mindful of the fact that we could still see a pullback here. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin and kind of see where we're at, get a baseline of the back-end liquidation and open interest. And as per usual, this hasn't changed too much. Open interest range is like 118, 119, 117. Pretty much every $1,000, you're seeing a significant amount of buying pressure. Those are just those key levels, those round numbers that typically consistently reaffirm themselves. If we take a look here though, liquidation delta is still bearish, right? So that's an interesting thing. The price is going up and there's more shorts in the market. So what that tells us is that it's a typical weekend manipulative type of situation. A lot of late shorts got trapped yesterday. And I did recommend, of course, if you saw the whole video, to not take a short at that level, even though it feels like it was going to break down. So truth is, you want to be kind of careful when you are trading these kind of ranges. The fact is we didn't truly close below the daily time frame at 116,000. That's why we always wait for daily candlestick closures. So now that we look at the charts, and we will here in a minute, we're going to see that the $116,000 range was, while we wicked down below that, we didn't close in that 24-hour period below that. Either way, there's still a lot of liquidation remaining between 113 and 115 as a rough estimate. And we do take a look at net longs versus net shorts. On the left-hand side, we have the longs here in the market. So those who took that long at 115.5, absolutely in the money right now. And we can see some shorts are now underwater, the 117.4s. They are essentially underwater. But We got some selling pressure here at 118,000, so a lot of shorts are heavy there. That does imply that we're going to see potential resistance there, but also there's a lot of longs at 118.7. They're trying to protect their investment. They're trying to push the price action up so they can reverse it on us. Once more, 118.7 is that major area of long and short delta. So when we take a look here, quickly to note the daily time frame. This is what I was referring to yesterday too, why it's important to wait for daily candlestick closures. Well, it's kind of difficult to see based on the chart here. The candle wicked all the way down here to 114.6 on the Binance chart, right? This is futures, of course. Things are a little different on futures, but for the most part, we saw that candle wick down. But the truth is, we didn't even come close to closing at that 116,000 or lower level. So once more, had we closed below 116, that would have showed significant selling pressure and being able to hold below that level. That never happened. Therefore, it's null and void, and that you don't want to consider trying to short into that. That's why you wait to take shorts for bearish back tests if they are to happen, which never occurred. Okay, so daily time frame still looks pretty strong. We're still over our moving average. While we are seeing divergences as per usual, these are not like super strong, like monumental things, right? The key takeaway is that we have a lot of volume, and every time the price comes down to this 116 to 117 range, it's heavily guarded. So while I do still feel we're going to see the CME gap and the fair value gap filled at some point, it may not be for a little while. We're going to get a lot of manipulation in this range first. Okay, we're kind of just stuck on stupid in this 116 to 120 range. 4-hour time frame is not telling us too much. We're kind of hanging out right here at our moving averages. The key takeaway I would say though here for Bitcoin is if we break above this descending trend line, then we're going to be in a much better place to consider a long. Kind of like Ethereum, for example. It's broke above its descending trend line, probably likely to backtest bullishly here before it takes off, but that's usually a good sign. That's the early indication of a trend reversal is breaking through those kind of barriers. And we don't have that fully yet for Bitcoin, so we're still in this transition. Generally best not to trade a transition. Okay. All that being said, let's go ahead and move on to Ethereum. See what's going on here. So Ethereum is, of course, one we've talked about for a while. That I actually skipped this earlier, and actually I'm glad that I just thought of this here, is the ETF inflow. This is pretty insane how much money is flowing into Ethereum versus Bitcoin. So granted, this is a 2-day lag, of course. ETF inflows are always delayed, but when we look here, we can see the 24th is effectively the last day in which we saw what 3/4 of the ETF inflow was Ethereum versus Bitcoin. That's pretty significant. Okay, so that's like an 80-90% difference there, and that's pretty huge. So that implies money flowing into Ethereum, more sustainability. Okay, so that's generally a good sign here. So when we take a look at the back end liquidation data, we could and likely should see some liquidation above the price, which should incentivize it to go higher, which this is pretty obvious that is pretty strong right there. In fact, let's pull up a different chart. This is going to help us with the other altcoins too. And take a look here at open interest on the right-hand side. It's kind of sparse. You can kind of see it, but if we look at the heavy concentrations, it's right there where the price is at. So we do have some resistance at the 37.50 to 37.40 range. So there's a lot of open interest there. Same with 37.80. So we will need to see a lot of volume flowing into this coin, more volume, especially, to continue higher. Now, it probably would have went higher hadn't Bitcoin pulled back the way it did yesterday. But if we look at the ETF inflow, this is liquidation delta, we still have more shorts than longs, right? So more shorts than longs in the market, but there's a tremendous amount of liquidation above the price between 3,800 and 3,900. So it does feel like a short squeeze should be more likely on this coin based on the fact that we have broken free from this little our descending trend here. While trends are not exact, obviously we could draw that out in many different ways, right? For the most part, you could see that the lower high pattern essentially, where it's creating lower highs. Now at this point, we're essentially creating higher highs, and we just broke through or retested that resistance at 37.50. So while there's a lot of confluence here, reinforcing resistance, as long as the volume stays high, we're in good shape. Keep in mind, this is a weekend though, folks. Very difficult to gauge volume on weekends, okay? So that's generally why I usually avoid trading on weekends. There's rare occasions where I'll send out some trade signals to our community. So that's kind of where we're at. Speaking of which here, congrats to our community for some nice profits on our Crow coin long, 33% there. That coin is cranking, folks. I think you may be better off considering a trade on a coin like that versus other ones, because some coins right now are just kind of running flat. And at this point, honestly, Ethereum is kind of one of those, but I think it's positioning itself for a breakout. So at this point, that's kind of where we're at there. We are above all moving averages, and there's no significant divergences for Ethereum. This is one that's you're more likely to find success going up than down. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there for Ethereum. Let's move on to Solana and take a quick here look at this ascending trend, still holding above the trend. Now you got to keep in mind this trend is not exact. It doesn't run concurrent with our moving averages, which we generally like to look at. So let's take a look at the back end first, kind of see how that matches up with us, and go from there. When we take a look here at open interest in the back end, 185, 190, and 178. Those are those three areas of concentration. 178 has some more volume to it now, which is good. That's that dip that a lot of folks had bought. And I did mention that 170 to 175 would be a good area to consider taking a long. Now, in hindsight, I should have taken that long personally because obviously we're doing very well. Same thing with SUI too. I should have got in at 360. But the way things were looking yesterday, it was very, very indicative based on the charts that we were going lower for Bitcoin, and it just turned right back around. So it reinforces that necessity to average into your position and to make sure that you are careful with your trades and not just try to FOMO into every direction, because just say you shorted at the last minute yesterday, you'd probably have a pretty bad day right now. All that being said, liquidation short delta is at 3 billion, which is quite high for Solana. So keep that in mind. This coin has a tremendous amount of selling pressure. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards the price pulling back based on that metric alone. But let's look at other things too. We can see 195 to 197 roughly is that local area of liquidation, but heavy concentration below the price at 172. Let's take a quick look at the daily and kind of recognize where we're at here. See. We can see volume still remaining quite high. So we can see also MACD and stochastic swinging down. We've lost our moving average, but our money flow index is above the price. Generally, that's a favorable sign. So usually when money is flowing into a coin and the relative strength is tapering off, that's a strength. That's a type of bullish type of convergence, right? So it's a very good sign in most cases to see that. And then on the 4-hour time frame, while we are kind of slowly testing these moving averages here, everything else looks fairly strong. We got a convergence there. We've got a daily, we're back up over 50 in the RSI in the 4-hour. These are usually signs I like to look for before I consider taking a trade. Let's take a quick look here at Solana, just kind of clarify where we closed yesterday. See, 187 is where we closed yesterday. So the price does pull back. We could very well see that CMA gap get filled back to the upside. So overall, we're looking pretty strong here, I feel, for Solana. But just be mindful. This is a weekend, folks. Low volume. It's never great trading conditions. So that's just the easy way around it, or easy way to understand it. Take a look here. Speaking of great trading conditions, remember I talked about confluence? This is it right here, folks. 100% confluence there. In other words, we see a lot of support in that range with the previous high retested as new low. Not only a cup and handle pattern, but also a bull flag breakout. But more importantly, we got this key fib level here that kind of reinforces it. Once more, fib levels mean very little outside of confirmation, but there is a lot of confirming factors there letting us know the price should go up here. Granted, somebody in our community, I think, was mentioning that there is, what was it? They had mentioned something to the fact that SUI was, what was it? Maybe the ETF is in review by the SEC. I'm not sure if that's right. Maybe somebody could comment below and let me know. But there's, this is a fundamentally charged coin. Anytime something like that happens, especially an ETF approval of some sort, that's going to be pretty monumental for it. So keep in mind that may have been factored in. But if we take a look at liquidation above the price, this should still exist. Let's double check. For SUI, let's see here. First of all, open interest. I want to recognize that $4 was that previous resistance. So if you get lucky, you see the price pull back down to $4, that's an excellent consideration for long based on that bullish backtest of the previous resistance. So once more, $3.95 to $4 is that range. We can see long liquidation delta is super high now. It's shifted from minus 500 million this time yesterday to plus 400 million today. We look here, a lot of liquidation is about to get hit here pretty hard. So there's crazy enough, there's a lot of folks trying to short this coin, which is not really a good idea. You don't short a coin that has this much momentum, specifically on a weekend too. It's just a bad idea. Either way, there's a lot of liquidation above the price, upwards about 460. So I would not be surprised if we see a push higher to that range. If that were to happen, then that might be a consideration for a short. What I would recommend is waiting for the RSI to come back down under 70 if it passes. So if we do see a break above 70 in the RSI, wait for it to come back down here. That's when you generally want to consider securing profits. Once more, that's more of a swing trader perspective. You're scalping, long-term holder. Don't listen to that, but those are kind of just little tactics that I use myself when securing profits. All that being said, everything's extremely bullish here. There's no hidden divergence. There's nothing you're going to see unless you're reaching that tells us SUI is going to pull back. Right? It has this liquidation in its sights, tons of volume flowing in. If you get lucky and see $4 again, consider a long. That's the concept there. XRP. Let's quickly note here that XRP is not bullish by any stretch, but it's held its $3 support range very well. Okay, that's the main focus there. If we do see $3 retested, that might be a good consideration for a long. I'd love to see these kind of back tests here. That's usually when I try to get in here if we see that. Now, in hindsight, I was wanting to get in at $3, but the price continued to go up, and I wasn't trying to FOMO in on a red Friday. So, there's that. But the truth is, we broke our short-term descending trend. We're over our SMAs there, and we look at the daily time frame too. Still fairly bullish. We're over our moving averages in the overall sense. But once more, the $3 range is that heavy support based on a myriad of factors. Actually, it's psychological support too, or now support was a resistance, and that's just kind of how that works with large round numbers. We take a look at open interest though. We can see 326, 312. Those are the two areas above and below the price that may pose some support. That once again, open interest can be conceived as support levels or resistances. And at this point, we got short liquidation delta super high. So what's unique about this coin is we see a lot more people shorting than taking long. That's 3 billion in short liquidation delta. That's a lot. So be careful taking longs into that. That's kind of something you want to be cautious with. While we could see a short squeeze soon, it's going to require Bitcoin to run towards 120 or more, right? That's generally how this coin works. This coin pumps very well when Bitcoin pumps, and I would say that it pulls back fairly consistent with Bitcoin too right now. It's a pretty close approximate on 1-to-1 ratio for up and down. All that said, 330 to 335 would be two areas of take profit consideration if the price were to pump. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a short there, but a lot of times you'll see price shoot up these liquidation levels there. So overall, that's kind of what where we're at. It's not terrible, it's not amazing. It is what it is, but that's kind of the charts for you folks. You learn to roll with it, right? Speaking of rolling with it, if you want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is a site linked down below. It's offering a lifetime lock-in for the 50% off discount. That's available until the 31st of this month. So keep in mind, it's only offered once a year. Once that ship has sailed, it'll come back next year around July. That's kind of a normal thing. Either way, if you have questions, concerns, reach out. Jump on over to our BitNix too, folks. This campaign just finished, but it was pretty solid. We just hit that 200,000 mark, so we had a $16,000 prize pool there. Once more, if you use my link to register, you'll always be eligible for future competitions. Next month is a trading deposit reward bonus, and I believe a new registration reward bonus too. So that's all going to be available there for you. Links down below if you're curious. I do look forward to work with you though. Have a good rest of your day. Reach out. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you next one. Take care of yourself.